Hey everybody, Doom here from Dungeons and Doom Biscuit. I don't know if y'all are interested, but I was thinking about making a tiny robot. I'm going to get a little poker chip here. And I'm going to get a piece of cardboard. I could use cardstock, I guess, but I'm going to use cardboard. I'm going to super glue, or hot glue, this chip onto that cardboard like that. I'm going to let that cool for a moment. Then I'm going to cut along here. It might be easier with scissors. And use that to make a little base. And I'm making my robot out of sprues mostly here. So to make this more manageable, I'm just going to get a tiny dab of glue, or this is kind of big. I'm going to get a tiny dab of glue on here, just like that. I'm going to stick that chip down and let that cool in place for a minute. Then I'm going to get my snippers out. And I'm going to make my robot body. So these are all a little thinner than I want for my torso. So let me think about that. I have some different beads I could use, but I really didn't want to use beads. I just want to use sprue. And things sprue-like. Let's see if one of these is thicker. It's a little bit thicker. We're going to use that. That's going to be our body. Okay. Now for our legs, I think the easiest thing to do would be to nip off a couple right angles here. I'm just cleaning those corners like that. And let's get those about the same length. And to do that, I'm just getting those pieces there. Then I'm going to glue those onto my body. I'm just going to get a tiny dab of glue here. And I'm going to use that tiny dab of glue to kind of create the hip. So I'm going to rub that around a little bit and get it how I want it to sit on him. Then I'm going to let it cool. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just get a tiny dab of glue. Just like that. Do the same thing over here. Rub that around a little bit, kind of get some good contact area, and then get it kind of in position how I want him to be walking. Too easy. Way too easy. Then I'm going to get that on my base, how I want him to be standing. This one needs to move up a little bit. I'm going to see if I can twist that up a little bit. There we go. So he's got a better posture. I'm just going to get a little bit of dab of glue, and a little bit of dab of glue. And I'm going to stick him on my base how I want him to stand. Okay. Just like that. Now we need some arms. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to cut some right angles off of my sprue here to use. I have these little pieces. I don't remember what the sprue is from, but I have these cool little pieces that I'm going to save. They must have went to whatever I didn't build right. I'll save those. So for my arms, I'm just going to get some more right angles. I'm having trouble seeing right angles right now for some reason. I'm going to take one from here. No, I don't like that. I'll take from here. Here. And here. We're going to snip that off. We're going to cut that there. Kind of in the middle. I'm going to snip that off, just like we did the other ones. We're going to take this piece and clean it up. Snip that off there, snip that off there. Oops, flying piece. Cut that off at an angle. That's going to be my other arm. I want this to be about the same length. So I'm just going to snip that off and snip that off. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just get a tiny dab of glue. Smear that around. Kind of build a shoulder with it for my robot arm. Now, I don't know how big a regular miniature is next to this because I didn't check. I just made a robot on a size medium-ish base. Okay. Twist that out a little bit. There we go. And let's look at a real mini. So it looks like he's a little taller than a regular mini, and we do need a head still. But before the head, let's figure out his hands. So for his hands, I think the easiest thing to use would be tiny beads. I have a box of tiny beads. I could probably find his head in here too. So for his hands, come on, open you son of a bitch. There we go. So we got to use one of these bigger ones for a head, if I can get it. And we need some tiny ones for his hands. Are any of these tiny ones open? No, they're not. Okay. No problem. Take two of those for hands. Look, making a big old mess. Of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? Okay, so I'm going to need tweezers for this because I'm sloppy. I'm going to get a dab of glue here for this hand. Just the tiniest little dab of glue. I'm going to grab one of those tiny beads. Smear that around and get it where I want it. I'll do the same thing on this side. I'm using a tiny bead. Yep. Okay. And then for the head, I'm just getting my glue. Oh, should have used tweezers. Getting my glue, sticking it on, and rolling that forward a little bit in a posture that I like. Now I'm going to clean him up real quick and get any glue off him. Spider webs and such, you know. Something like that. Now we want this to be sturdy, and I want to use these two cool pieces that were left on the sprue that were part of whatever that's supposed to be. So I have these two cool pieces here. I'm going to put those on his shoulders. Just like that. And then his back's a little boring. So to make his back a little more interesting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a sprue in half. And I'm going to stick it to another one. Just like this. Okay. And then I'm going to cut it flush on the top and bottom, just like that. I'm going to get a dab of glue on his back. Just a little dab of glue. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to stick it on there like that. Okay. Get rid of hot glue. Now I'm going to put a little gem bead on his face. And to do that, I'm just going to get a little piece of cardstock or whatever I can find laying around. I'm going to put some super glue on it. Then I'm going to add some detail on this guy with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get one to put right in the center of his face. Like that. I'm going to rub that around and get really good contact. And then put that eye in the center how I want it to sit. Just like that. Okay? And then I'm going to come over here on his backpack. I'm going to do something like that on the backpack too. Oops. I'm just going to rub that glue around to get good contact and then shove that bead or that gem where I want it to go. Just like that. Now you could really go fancy if you wanted, I think. And you could put these on his knees. Maybe on his elbows too. If you had the patience for it. Okay. I don't know if it's necessary on the elbows, but it might look cool. Get that off there. There we go. Go to your home. Oh, we lost it. Of course we did. Okay. So we have something like that. And you could give him a gun or anything you wanted to. Hell, you got enough sprue here. You could easily construct him a small gun. What I would say is get one of these weird pieces of offcut. Cut it like that. Get a tiny dab on his hand, just like that, and get your tweezers and just set that little piece of offcut on there to look like a gun. Smear that around to get some good contact, and that's not quite long enough for a gun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of toothpick. I'm going to extend that barrel out a little bit. Okay. Something like that. Now we want this to be super sturdy, and it's not super sturdy right now. So what I think we should do is make sure he's dry and paint him in super glue. You're going to need a sacrificial brush for this kind of behavior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my cardboard here. I'm going to put some more super glue on it. And I'm going to use these like 100 for a couple bucks or however, whatever the price is of these. They're super cheap. And I'm going to paint him in super glue. Just to get everything sturdy and permanent. And I'm not sure if I've even covered all of them or not, but I'm really trying to make sure I do. And one of the nice things about adding a step like this is that it's going to make sure that paint sticks on him really well, and it might not have stuck to this plastic well without it being prepped in any kind of way. Now we can stop here and let this dry like this, and I'm sure it will stay and hold. But what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of texture to him, like a little bit of rust and battle damage that just naturally kind of occurs with his design. And to do that, I'm going to get this floor really wet here with glue. And to do that, what I'm going to grab is some baking soda. I don't want to really get it on his face if I can avoid it, but I'm going to lightly sprinkle it around on him. I'm going to focus on the ground to make sure I have a good bond for his feet, like that. Make sure I get some of that on that gun so that holds. I want to make sure I'm getting around the angles of his joints and his shoulders and stuff so that holds. Okay. And I'm just blowing that off. And I'd like to add something onto his base to make his base a little interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little bit of a squiggle here with some glue just to add some texture right there. I'm going to get a dab of glue on the back. I'm just going to cut a piece of cardstock or cardboard real thin and just add a piece of garbage on his base. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to slide that down, push that in place, and hope that everything stays how I want it to. He's sturdy. He seems sturdy. I'm a little worried about him coming off the base because of that real thin cardstock. So to kind of shore that up, I'm going to drop a little bit of glue down right off his legs onto the base and let him roll around a little bit. And it's still a little weak. So I'm going to sprinkle some more baking soda and try to get a really good bond on those feet. I don't want him coming off the base. I don't want him falling apart. I want him to be strong and sturdy, and I just used cardboard for that base, really. Now he's significantly sturdier. Cool. Now, can we paint him as he is? Well, maybe. Maybe we can. He seems pretty sturdy. He's not perfect by any means. I need to shore that gun up a little bit. It's a little bit weak there. So I'm going to get my glue. Get a little line of that on there. I'm going to come back with my paintbrush that I was using and just get a really good bond there. Just like this. Because I really don't want this coming apart on me. Everything looks pretty sturdy besides that little bit. I'm going to set that off to the side and grab the baking soda one more time. Better safe than sorry. Okay. There it is. That's what we needed. We don't need our tools anymore. And I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit lower so you can see what we're doing. Put my tools away. Bring my camera down a little bit and let's take a look at him. So that's what he looks like right now. Just made him out of sprues, a piece of barbecue skewer, whatever those pieces were, which I didn't mean to use any pieces besides the sprues. So let's get a crappy brush. Any small crappy brush will do. And let's get a piece of cardboard. And we should base coat him. That would be the mature and responsible thing to do, but I'm not doing that. I'm not going to spray him. I'm just going to base coat him with black paint and hope it sticks. So using my crappy brush here and feeling pretty bold, I have decided to paint him with just this and hope that it works. It seems like it's working. It seems like I'm getting a good base coat. I got to push to kind of get in the cracks, and I'm definitely painting a little bit thick. But this isn't a highly detailed store miniature. This is something we threw together in a few minutes with garbage. Keep that in mind as you're watching this paint job. We made this miniature it's going to be like a Death Squad robot of some kind here for no dollars and 0 cents. It's garbage. Well, I lie. It's not garbage. I'm not trying to lie. But it's not garbage. It's beads. You know what I mean? Beads cost money. Glue costs money. Whatever those sprues were from cost money. You know, there is an expense involved, but it's pennies. You know, if you break it down to the how many beads were in that package that I paid $5 for, or if you look at, you know, I was going to throw the sprues away if I didn't use them for something. I didn't buy it just to have the sprues. You know what I mean? The cardboard was from a box of coffee that's, you know, the coffee is being drank. I don't have a need for the rest of it. Let's hot air gun this guy. We'll paint his base brown. And I'm just going to use some Walmart brown for that. And a little bit of that white still showing through. And I'm just going to leave it. It's going to create a little bit of variation. It's going to look all right. I'm going to get a little bit of metallic in that. I'm using this copper color. I'm just going to mush that in there a little bit. Change that up some. And we'll dry this again. And we got to figure out what color we want our dot to be. I think I like my bot the color he is, but I'm going to use a gray over that, a light dark gray over that. This is my favorite color in the entire world. It's called Pavement. I didn't grab Pavement. There we go. My favorite color in the entire world, Pavement. This is pretty dry, but we're going to be a little careful just in case it's not super dry. I'm going to get a crappy brush. I'm going to get a lot of that pigment off, just like that. And I'm going to drag it along him and lighten him up with some of this pavement. Okay. And I might do one lighter shade of another gray on top of that with like a really fine dry brush, actually, now that I'm looking at it. Because the pavement's still pretty dark. I love pavement for a lot of applications. This is not the one for pavement for me. Okay. I'm just going to use this wetter too. I'm not even going to try to do it like a half-ass dry brush. Just make sure the gun and everything's painted. I'm going to do a metallic dry brush on this guy, especially hitting that gun, I think. I'm just going to use that same brush. I'm going to get a lighter color of gray. It's called Elephant. I'm just hitting the top parts of stuff. Okay. Wiping that brush off, getting this lightest bit here. Just kind of touching some of the higher angle stuff with it. Now, I want him to be kind of battle worn and beat up, so I'm going to dry him off. Just like that. I'm going to get a metallic and a really soft brush. I'm just using a makeup brush. I'm beating him up a little bit. Just throwing some metallic on there like he's been banged up and beat up a little bit. Then I'm going to get that really small brush that I was dry brushing with just now. Some of that metallic. I'm going to paint his gun silver. Half-ass. I'm going to do his backpack silver. Half-ass. These little spikes. Half-ass. Just a dab on top of his head, dab on his arms, dab on his legs and knees, dab on his elbows. Then we're going to dry him off again. Sweet. For some of the detail work, I'm going to use a miniature paint because it's thicker and covers nicer. A little dab of red. Boop. That little dab of red with a brush that I would use on a miniature. I want to paint his eye orb with it. Just like that. I'm going to touch the edge of his gun with that. Then I'm going to get a yellow. Thank you, Mixomatic 500. You've done a great job today. I get that yellow. Oops. I'm going to do that one on his back with the yellow. I'm going to do his elbows with the yellow. And his knees. Then I'm going to do some really thin lines with that yellow. To represent maybe like rank or something, I don't know. I'm going to put some on his chest. Now, I have this metallic blue that I never get to use for anything. So I'm going to use this to kind of like give him some bling. So I'm going to paint his backpack in that. But I'm just kind of doing the frame because I don't want to accidentally hit that yellow that I did. I'm just being careful. And I want to put some of that on his chest here. I'm just doing it in 2 dots and then kind of dragging them together. A little bit on the inside of his arms. See what I'm doing? I'm just kind of like adding color without going too crazy. Back of the arms, bottom of the forearms, and back of the legs. A little bit of line on both of those. Down his back. Then we'll do a stripe down the center of his head, carefully. I need to eat, my hands are shaking. Okay. Now I'd like to do something else, but I don't know what, so I think I'm just going to call it a win and quit. There's someone at my front door. My dogs are letting me know. So I don't know how good the thumbnail is going to look, and somebody had said something about that, so I'm going to take a second here. Let me put my brush away. I'm going to hold this up and give you a look at what we made for nothing. Pretty sick little dude. Here he is next to a mini. He's a little bit taller, but a lot of my future ones came from HeroClix, so they're all a little taller anyway, so he'll fit in good scale-wise, and pretty happy. We should dry this guy off. Anyways, I'll dry him off. I'll clear coat him. I'll pop him off this paint lid, and then I'll take him upstairs and show my wife. And she'll be like, oh, he's beautiful. There's blue on him. I love blue. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon. For fudge's sake, leave a comment. God, do I love comments. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Also, if you really like the crafting tips in these videos, try playing one in reverse and see if you can get some golden gems out of that. That might work. I don't know. Anyways, bye.